all right. The meeting will now come to order. As you are able and willing, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. We have no scheduled audiences to the public on topics which are not on the agenda tonight. So we'll move into the report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, July 21st, 2021.
Second?
Heather, thank you. Any comments or questions about those minutes?
Under the report of the chair, I think it should say future workshop prior to the August board meeting. It doesn't need to say which. There was something else, but I can't find it now.
I see what you're saying.
And in number 5, page 3, on the end of paragraph 5, it says requiring a recertifications, and just knock the S off.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yep. So we'll eliminate the S at the end of that sentence. And as regards the first point, the word which could be replaced with to be held.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is in the report of the chair, number 1. The second sentence was about the outlines for a future workshop to be held prior to the August board meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Page 3, number 7.
Yep.
Second to last sentence in number 7. All students can be supported in the classroom. I think because is just an extraneous word there.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word because.
So
Yep.
eliminate because?
Yep.
Yeah. This is a really picky one, but on the report of the superintendent, on the first one, update on summer projects, the paragraph ends with a semicolon. Needs to be a period.
Yeah, that can be replaced with a period. Okay.
There's another one that I saw when I was reading this earlier. It's like a spelling of counselor at one point is the wrong kind of counselor. But I'm going through the paragraph now and I can't find it, so.
I don't see it either,
Yeah, so maybe it was corrected before it was printed.
possibly. Yep, okay. Anything else? Okay, all in favor? I see 6 hands. Yes, 6-0. Thank you. That brings us to the report of the chair. First item is the town officials meeting schedule. You're all aware that we've been meeting monthly with the officials from both towns to share information. I presume that for the time being, we're going to continue those meetings on a virtual basis. And actually, I don't see any reason to not continue to do that indefinitely, to continue to have them via.
Correct.
Via,
I will try to
Video
make contact that I have not heard.
okay.
Obviously, there's been some changeover in both offices.
Right.
So I will reach out tomorrow with hopes that we can resume that second Wednesday of September, just to be able to start having those conversations again, just so valuable.
Got it.
And I'm not sure where either committee right now is with the rehiring process, so.
Right. Okay. And then the second item on the report of the chair is with regard to opening day for faculty and staff, and in particular assignment of introductions of new staff by board members. Did you want to say a little bit about? the
So
event itself?
our intent for the opening day for our faculty and staff was to be in person. I had planned to do that at our stadium, to be outside, just to be on the safe side. But as I've gone through the SOP provided by the Maine Department of Education last Thursday, I just don't see a way that we can do that without necessarily taking some risks that we really don't need to do. That's a variable I feel like that we can control and should probably eliminate that. And so with that being said, we will hold that virtually again. And so what I would ask the board to do is, our tradition is to have the board introduce all the new hires for the district, and if we could do that virtually with just a short video clip, and then send those to Heidi, that would be great. We'll put that together for the first day. Unfortunately, I wish we could do it. I mean, obviously being indoors is a concern, but the 6 feet apart, 15-minute time frame, chances are that we would be there close to an hour, and then if we were to do that, it would cause us to have to have seating charts for almost 500 faculty members, and that would be very difficult to do. And so with this, in essence of everything, let's just keep it simple and we'll do the virtual. So
Okay, so
And
we have,
that's Monday the 30th
that's Monday the 30th, that's
at
correct.
8:30 or 7:45 to open
Yeah,
the
and so
doors.
if you could get the videos to me by Thursday morning, the 26th, that would be
Okay.
wonderful. That way, we have an opportunity to kind of put everything together. On the 27th, I will be meeting with the school counselors all day with the ASCA, who are coming in to do some facilitated trainings with us. So if I could get that done on that Thursday, that would be great, and get that video out to our principals, and they could share that at the building level with everybody.
Okay.
okay, so who wants to do what? Lisa, I think you expressed interest in at least a part of the high school list.
Yeah, as much of the high school list as,
Okay, and-
yeah, however the numbers work out. is
We have
fine.
22 names on this list in front of us. There may be an additional 3 or 4 between now and next week or so.
That we could add on to the,
Do you want to just take four?
Yep.
That's
Four.
easy.
sounds good.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So Lisa
So
will take
Lisa
the
will
first
take the
4 on the high
first 4.
school. Kate will take the next 4 on the high school.
So technically, I would not be adding any more names to that list. What we would do is those staff members would not have been approved by the board at that time, as I think this through. And so typically in that situation, what we do is we hire them as a long-term substitute teacher, which we can do, and then we would offer them a contract on the first once their, or if their nomination was approved at that time. So we would not read their names at that point, just for clarity for everybody. So that
Okay.
just takes that very, as you sat there and said that, I was like, oh, wait a second, let me
Yeah.
go
Okay,
process-wise.
so we'll just be these 22.
It would be just those 22 unless we have some educational technicians that are hired, which does not require a board meeting to do
Okay.
that. So
So
we
there
will
might be
update some other things, but it necessarily wouldn't be teaching positions because that would require us to meet on the first to be able to approve those hires.
Okay.
So Heather, I think you had expressed interest in the middle school group.
Yeah, I'll do the 4 of those.
Okay. And Elliott Elementary, Sue, that's 5 there, close enough.
You're doing the second one.
Jen, did we get you, you're gonna take Central Elementary, which is 3, and...
And I'll take district there at the bottom.
And then there's the Great Works.
Yeah, we
person.
didn't account for the Great Works School.
I'll do the Great Works since it's right underneath my batch, unless someone else wants to.
Okay,
Makes sense.
good. Awesome, thank you very much.
Perfect.
Okay, that is the extent of the report of the chair, which moves us to the report of the superintendent.
Okay, thank you all very much. I want to start off the meeting just with our 2021-2022 district reopening plan. Just before I get started, this was an extremely difficult task. I think as we ended the school year, there was such great momentum on the horizon that, some of the restrictions and requirements were being taken away. People felt really good where we were. And then over the course of the summer, obviously with the Delta variant, things changed. And so data today compared to data last year, for instance, and again, I understand this is just one day, but I believe August 18th of 2020, there was 22 new cases. On August 17th, 2021, there was 122 new cases. So there's been a significant uptick, and again, that's one day. But there is some concerns in the community right now, and so the Department of Education created this SOP, and in many ways it's a more restrictive document in the fact that there's a lot more reporting requirements that are on the districts, but they have provided us some logical flexibility, I guess, within the plan to be able to manage this process. So I do want to say that this will be an ongoing process. This is really where we stand today. That could change in the next couple of days. I have been in contact with the CDC numerous times this week to try to get some clarity around some vaccination numbers, and we need to collect data on our end as far as what our vaccination totals are for our students in the district, and obviously part of that is staff vaccination totals as requirement by the state of Maine. So this is where the plan stands today. It could change over the next couple of weeks depending on how the SOP changes, what the governor may or may not do, but I just wanted to kind of give people an update as to where we are. As we build our plan, there was 4 real main ideas that we wanted to focus on. The first is our priorities. Number 1, student, staff, and community safety and health. That had always been our number 1 priority, and that will remain that way. Number 2 is a big one, resuming in-person instruction for all students. Again, very, very important. Data is very clear that students need to be in school, and being in the school environment is the best things for them. Number 3 is the social, emotional, and mental health considerations for all of our students, and then the academic programming and progress. And so those are really the 4 lenses that we had to look at this through. Safety and health. Students should remain at least 3 feet away from other students, so that we had the social distancing requirements last year that was 6 feet. We're able to move that down now to 3 feet, and to be able to create some more space in the classroom. So what does that mean? Class sizes in the elementary school last year varied from anywhere from 9 to 14 students, and now is closer to 14 to 16, 17, depending on the class size. And so that's a really important caveat for us. So we've been able to, in some aspects, almost go 40% more capacity in our classrooms, which is still within our district policy, but obviously the safety considerations outweigh that. Important note, staff should remain at least 6 feet away from students and other staff members. So adults is a little bit different than children within the school setting, but this is all stuff that's outlined in the SOP. And then universal masking is required for all students and staff indoors. This third one is a tough one, and there's been a lot of conversation about this, and so let me explain a caveat that was put into the plan. When the Department of Education created this plan, there was 3 pathways for student safety and success. It's vaccination, pooled testing, and universal masking. Universal masking allows us to do something that's very, very important. In the past, if you were in a classroom with a student who was tested positive, you would be considered a close contact, and students would then have to be out of school from 10 to 14 days. With the universal masking rules, that has changed now. By wearing masks in the classroom, students, if there was a positive in the classroom and they were able to maintain 3-foot social distancing, there would be no reason that they would have to do the contact tracing and be out of school for 10 to 14 days. That was a game changer. That was something that was, when we talk about being able to manage students and keep students in school, it's really important. And I just want to share just kind of a data point for you. We had 719, I believe, quarantines last year district-wide, and that's quarantines, that's not positive cases, but that's people that were involved in the quarantine situation and had to miss school. If you take that 719, 14 cases, and you figure that the quarantine started at 14 days and it reduced it to 10 days, but let's just say on the average they missed 8 days of school because of that. If you do the math out, that's about 6,000 days of instruction that was either disrupted for students or days that families were impacted, having to make travel arrangements at work, but they weren't able to go to work because they might have a young child that was having to stay home. By the universal masking requirement, we drastically reduced that. If we can keep our masks on, that allows students to stay in school even if there is a positive case in the classroom, if they're keeping the 3-foot social distancing. And so I know there's a lot of feelings about the masking across the board, but ultimately when it becomes the safety and keeping kids in school, that was the mindset that we had to do. I will say, with my recommendation, that this is something that we're going to be looking at very deeply. I've been in contact with the CDC to understand, is there a threshold of vaccination rates, particularly at the high school level, that would say that they would no longer recommend masking? So if the high school, let's say, was at 80% vaccination rates, is that enough to institute a non-recommendation for masks. I have not gotten the answer for that, but that's something that we will continue to look for to be able to find out the long-term answer for this. But you know, that's one of the pieces. Vaccination rates, we will be collecting that data. As you know, the state of Maine is required that we collect that data for all staff, and then we will also be working through the state of Maine to collect that for our students so we can have concrete data of actually who's been vaccinated and what percentages we're talking about. Pool testing, you know, another tool that's used where testing comes in is done periodically. People can choose to sign up for that. That allows the entire building to have some more flexibility, but it also allows, in the event that there's a positive case, that people would be tested, would not necessarily have to quarantine unless they were positive. So 3 real clear pathways to keeping kids in school. How does this help? If vaccinated and considered a close contact of someone with COVID-19, you are not required to quarantine from school, after school, or community activities unless you are symptomatic. And so one of the tricky parts with the SOP, what's gotten a little bit confusing for schools, is that in the past it was either you were quarantined or not quarantined, and now there's really 3 levels to quarantines. There's in-school activities, there are after-school activities, and there's community-based activities. So that does change a little bit of the dynamic as to how we track data and how we have to communicate with families. If participating in pool testing and considered a close contact of someone with COVID-19, you are not required to quarantine from school or after-school activities unless symptomatic or the results of your individual by-next test are positive, but you would be required to quarantine from the community activities. So this is all about that pool testing. How does that benefit you? So, you know, and again, that would be by choice. When we originally created this plan, we were told by the state of Maine, in order for the pool testing to be valid, you needed to have 30% participation. We were notified today that that 30% participation number has been taken away. And so if a building participates in that, you know, they do receive the benefits from it, and obviously the individuals involved in that pool would receive those benefits. That 30% caveat has been taken away. So our original plan was to say, look, we did the survey data basically said about 78% of the people that responded to the surveys wanted to be involved with pool testing. Now that doesn't mean 70% of the people in the district, that means 70% of the people that responded, which is about 60%-ish of our community. Our plan was to say, look, we're gonna offer it. If we get the 30% numbers-wise, then we'll go forward with it. Because of this change, we'll go forward with it anyway unless those numbers are so low it doesn't make sense. So if we're talking about less than 10%, so for instance at Marshwood High School, your N, or your number that you would calculate off of, let's say is 780. You have 715, 720 students plus 60 staff members, that gives you 780. And traditionally you would have to do 30% of that to qualify for the pool testing. And so if we were at 20%, not a problem, but if we only had, let's say, 10 or 15 people, that wouldn't necessarily make sense to be able to do that. And so that would be the pool testing. If universally masked and considered a close contact of someone with a COVID-19, you are not required to quarantine from school unless you had unmasked or direct contact with an individual who tested positive for COVID-19. This was the game changer. This was the part of what I had to ultimately make my recommendation based upon, is that how do we keep kids in school? And this is the way that we keep kids in school. But you would be required to quarantine from after school and community activities. So for instance, is it possible that you could be in a situation where I am in a sophomore English class at Marshwood High School, and someone in that class happens to be positive, we had masks on, we kept our 3 feet distancing, you would not need to quarantine from school, but you would not be able to participate in an after-school activity. So they're making that difficult drawing of a line there, which is one of the, you know,
Unless you're vaccinated.
unless they're vaccinated,
Right,
unless they're vaccinated.
right.
So the SOP is a little bit confusing because the CDC and the Department of Education use the term recommendations very freely. But there's part of the SOP that is really non-negotiables. And it really says, if there's a positive, this is what you have to do. And then it says, here is the strategies you have to mitigate if there is a positive. And so those strategies are these what we're talking about, the vaccination, the pool testing, and university mask. If a student is vaccinated, they do not need to quarantine unless they believe they're symptomatic. Remember, if considered a close contact of someone with COVID-19 and you do not meet the exception on the previous slide, you must quarantine and therefore be out of school, the classroom for 10 days. So it's not out of the classroom for 10 days, it's quarantine for 10 days. That might be 8 days or whatever, depending on when that was identified. By implementing the 3-pronged approach to vaccination, pool testing, universal masking, we are using all the tools available to be able to keep our kids in the classroom and keep everybody as safe as possible. The social, emotional, mental health, our focus going into the school year is connections before content. Our motto is we open the school year will be vitally important to make connections with staff and students before diving directly into the curriculum. So when kids come back, there's a possibility, for instance, Central School may have 40% of their school who has never been to school before. You have second graders who maybe have never been in the doorway before. You have freshmen, sophomores, and possibly even juniors who have never had an end-of-the-year final exam. You know, there are changes that have occurred, and so really, rather than focusing on day one, let's dive into chapter 1 of our textbook. Let's focus in on coming back to school. Let's make connections. Let's make kids feel like they're important, that they're engaged, and they're involved in school. That's the priority. So the connections before content. We're not saying that the content's not important, but I firmly believe that if we put the time into building those interpersonal relationships, the content will take care of itself over the course of time. So we've got kids, again, who have not been to school in a long time, who are kids who haven't been with their friends in a long time. It's important to start to reintegrate and really reset our standards of operation when it comes to those connections with kids. Having students and staff safe in person and connected will lead to a wonderful year of academic programming and progress. And so we've done an incredible amount of work over the summertime to really work with students and bring students back. We'll continue to do that work, but really focusing on the academic growth once we have those connections in place. So my recommendation to the board, and certainly we will just, yours to discuss at that point in time, was that we would put this in place on Monday, the 23rd of August. Why is that important? Is because that's when we'll start having all of our staff back in the buildings for professional development. Right now, we are spaced out. The buildings aren't used quite as much at this point in time, but on the 23rd, we would start with our masks being in place. That would also give people a chance to be able to make those adequate adjustments to be able to do that. So I turn it over to the board for any questions that you may have. I will send, once the board makes a decision this evening, I will try to customize an email this evening to send to all of our community families, and also include a copy of the reopening plan for everybody as well.
Anybody on the board have questions or comments?
Well done. I'm very pleased with this presentation. I think this is an ever-changing landscape, and I support this 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's fair to point out that the picture, that as we currently understand it, may very well change again between now and when we actually open the doors to let the students in. And
100%.
it will, of course, evolve over the course of that semester.
To echo that, I mentioned it before we started, that this SOP was released to schools last Thursday, and I believe it was around, let's just say 1 or 2, roughly. By 9:30 that evening, there was already edits made to it. And so as we start to have these conversations, it will definitely evolve. And I also don't know how the governor's approach to this may change. Look, this is a tough situation. This is something that I feel really, it's unfortunate that each individual school is making this decision, but that's the way it is. And so we're going to base it what's best for our community. But there's a lot of emotions around this on either side, and it is not a decision that I make lightly. I certainly have my personal beliefs, but ultimately, as superintendent of schools, I must keep students safe and I must keep students in school. At the end of the day, that's what I'm hired to do. And I know that this may create some strife for people, but please understand that this is something that we're not taking lightly. This is not the end of the road. This is the beginning of the conversation. I am trying to find data that scientifically says that we can keep our kids safe. And once we have that data, then we will review the plan immediately. I want to assure you of that.
Yeah.
And it's not something, that any of us, take lightly. And it's unfortunate we have to have this conversation, but I think that's just where we are right now with this pandemic. I think we all have been exhausted by it. And I think it's tough as the, term that Heidi uses sometimes, is that after the spring that we had, where I'm going to use the, Wizard of Oz analogy, ding dong, the witch is dead, everything's great, and now all of a sudden we're shoving toothpaste back into a tube that we didn't squeeze out, and that feels a little bit hard right now. But at the end of the day, I need to look at everybody here and say, look, I did everything that I could to keep people safe.
Yep.
And so our, the American Academy for Pediatrics, the Maine CDC, the federal CDC, our doctors that we work with at York Hospital are all telling us this is the right approach to have right now. And so when we look at that, we look at the increased transmission rates right now. We see the rising numbers of school-age students that are being impacted by COVID, the fact that vaccinated people can also be carriers and transmit COVID at this point in time. This seemed like the logical decision of where to start, and then we will adjust as we go along. So,
Okay. Anybody else on the board have any questions or comments?
I think it's unfortunate, and there's no way around it. I don't think anybody wants to have to wear a mask all the time, not the least of which are our high school students, or staff, or anybody else, but it's the best of a yucky situation. I think it's what you have to do, and I think you're doing the right thing. I mean, it's not what we want, of course, but it's what's best for our students and our community, really. So there's the students, and then who the students could carry it off to. So it's a big deal, and our numbers are high right now.
I do want to be clear, and I don't think I was clear about this, but the masking is only indoors. And so the outdoors, we are not requiring masking. And so what does that mean? Athletics started on Monday. So if I'm a field hockey player, I can go to field hockey practice and I don't have to wear a mask, but maybe if I go into the locker room to have a team meeting, I need to put a mask on. Or if I'm a volleyball player and I'm in the gym and I'm practicing in the gym, we would have them wear masks. And the kids have been great about it. That's kind of where we are right now. But we would again encourage, lunchtime is going to be the curveball. And so, my words would be, we have to keep seating charts to be able to figure out where kids are. If we can get outside and eat lunch outside as much as possible at 6 feet, that's what we want to do. We have tents up at all the buildings, and we'll continue to do that, but those are the strategies. And a lot of this stuff is just kind of getting back to the habits that we had already established in the springtime, but it does feel a little bit differently because we felt like there was hope that we were on the other side of this, and unfortunately we're not, and as a community we're going to have to rally, and this is one of those decisions that no matter what we do, what I recommend, there's going to be people who say, cheers to you for doing this, as other people are going to be saying, I can't believe we're making this decision, but at the end of the day, it's a matter of what lens we have to look through right now, and so this is our starting point, and I can't reiterate that enough. It's a starting point for our work as we go forward for a long school year. So.
We have some things set up that we didn't have before. We have outdoor classrooms and opportunities for outdoor learning, and there's some upsides. We'll get through it.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Was there any restrictions as far as like singing or droplets or with band or singing like there was last time?
Yeah, I think we're going to be back to the masks, the open mouth
But
mask.
their distancing is 3 feet now?
I don't know the precise answer.
Okay.
That was not in the SOP. My guess would be that would be at the 6 feet. Physical education requirements have not come out either.
Okay.
One of the things that I have struggled with, and look, I'm just going to be honest with people. I'm not going to try to hide behind what other people say. I have struggled with the idea that if you go outside wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, there's really no difference.
Right.
That part has been really tricky for me to get my head around because it doesn't make logical sense to me sometimes. So the physical activity, the chorus, anything where the respiration numbers up, that's a little bit hazy.
Right.
And so I would be curious to find out, at one point it was 14 feet for physical activity, then it was 6 feet with the mask on. And so I think those are some of the details that we'll work out along the way. And so what's next? We obviously met, as an administrative group. We also met as our district reopening committee, where we have a representation from all of our school buildings. We've collected data around the pool testing, and now once we have a recommended opening plan, each building is going to have to then go back and customize that. So for instance, for those of you who have never been to Central School before, lunch at Central School cafeteria is very different. It's a very small space compared to Marshall Middle School, where it's a much larger space. And so there's some things that Nina might have to say, look, we're good, we ate lunch outside for the most part up through, Veterans Day, let's just say. And so those are the things that we may have to have those conversations back again. Whereas the high school might say, we're going to have assigned seats in the lunchroom, and this is why we have to do it, and this is how we're going to manage. So those customized things are going to be really where we have to spend the time. Again, with the outdoor stuff, it's 6 feet and 15 minutes of total cumulative exposure. And so obviously, that is the caveat there. So.
Okay.
What about buses?
Buses is required by the Federal Department of Transportation. So just like the rules that require you to wear a mask on an airplane, it's the same rules that apply on a bus. Okay. And so we still will be required to have it on buses. Now, look, one of those things that I don't understand, if you were a close contact and everyone was masked on a bus, that doesn't automatically get you out of quarantine. That's only in the classroom where that happens. So buses and cafeteria are very different. I'm not sure why that's the case, but that's one of the subtleties of the plan. And so, masks are required in the buses. It's, again, 6 feet in the buses, so we're going to try to spread out as much as we can in the buses or keep family members as close together as we can, and then we'll also keep the windows down to be able to create the airflow within the buses themselves. One of the things that we learned, and I know this is more of a long-term piece, it's just something else you would never think of, but we are going to start purchasing buses with air conditioners in them, because as the summer months are going, and as we get into July, we had that hot spell, having those windows open, that's a lot of hot air in those buses for a really long bus ride as we start. So we've never purchased air conditioning before in our buses. That's just something we try to save money on. And so going forward, that will be one of the accommodations we'll make going forward to be able to help with that from a transportation perspective.
I have a question. Why does it have to be 6 feet on a bus and only 3 feet in the classroom?
I do not have an answer to that.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
No, yeah, and that's just one of those little caveats where I think that some different federal people have their hands on it. The traditional contact tracing is 6 feet, but now with the universal masking, it allows us to go down to 3 feet. I'm not sure why it's still the 6 feet on the buses.
Because isn't it the same, it's supposed to be the same as other public transportation, which is not 6 feet, right?
My understanding is that that's a federal guideline. And
Okay.
so I'll get some clarity on that, Sue, but as I read the plan, it appeared to me that it was 6 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I may be off. I don't think I am, but I may well be.
No, I'm sure you're right. It just doesn't make any sense.
Don't be sure I'm right. That's a mistake, but.
Can I ask a question? So I'm just trying to think, and my kids have both graduated now, which is so crazy, but I'm just thinking if I have younger kids, it's just the questions that I might have. One is, what are the chances of, first of all, things changing before the school year even starts? That's almost 100% guaranteed, really, if we're, probably, right? And then after that, though, once school starts, at what point do we say these are going to be the rules for this semester or the how many times what are the potential for changes to happen during the actual school year?
That was probably one of my biggest struggles with the high school in particular. And so, speaking frankly, I felt like 8th grade and below was very clear. That people didn't have access to vaccinations. And so at the high school where people had access to vaccinations, that creates a different conversation. And so that's why I'm trying to get clarity around, is there a vaccination rate that would say you don't need to quarantine them? Like, what is that I'm going to use the word herd immunity status that we would talk about. And I don't have clarity for that right now. And so that for me would be something. The other thing that there is some feedback that we received, and I don't know if it's 2%, if it's 10%, it is some feedback that people provide us information saying they are not comfortable being vaccinated because the vaccination has not been approved by the FDA at this point in time. And so with the approval of the vaccination by the FDA, will we see a huge uptick in vaccination rates? Does that make a difference? I'm not sure, but those are the things that we're working on. I will say I'm not afraid to ask the hard questions, and I had some great conversations with Kelly DeVoe. And Ryan came into our office probably a month ago and said, John, we were reading through the federal plan, and were you aware that it said this universal masking requirement? And so since that moment, I reached out to Kelly DeVoe immediately and said, look, if this is true, this is a game changer for us. If we're looking for a way to keep kids in school, this makes a difference. And so Kelly took that, brought it to Dr. Shaw on our behalf. 2 weeks later, I got a text at 9 o'clock in the morning that said, John, make sure, the Commissioner Macon is talking about this right now. She's going to talk about exactly our conversation. And so, I think they're trying to find a way to make some sense out of this stuff and keep kids in school. The federal CDC has gone as far as to say social distancing, although important, cannot be a rationale for keeping kids out of school. And so, there is definitely this push. And so, I've had phone calls of people saying, hey, look, are we going to be out of school soon? That is not even on the radar, remotely on the radar. For people. I just want to be clear, that has not ever been brought up. I don't see that happening. I don't have a crystal ball, but that would shock me, that would even be a consideration, because it's been so clear at the federal level that kids need to be in school. Research on social emotional learning tells us that kids need to be in school. The experience that I saw this summer with kids in this building and the high school by itself, in the pride on their faces when they were able to kind of get caught back up if they were missing a standard and being engaged with one another, tells you that kids need to be in school. And so that's where we're at.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board on this topic? Would you mind coming down to the microphone, please? Begin, please, by stating your name and the town in which you live.
Hi, my name is John Leonard. I live in
have not seen the study. Obviously, social emotional learning is a big part of it. Yeah.
I have more questions that I've written down. I'll be asking more. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Lily Galvin, I live in Sunbury. I just want to say, first of all, the last, I don't know, year, 18 months, you guys have dealt with an incredibly pressing situation with a state that can't seem to make up its mind in 5 minutes to one to the other. So I do appreciate all the work that has gone into the decision you have made. As far as the masking goes, here's my biggest question and concern. It seems like you've done a lot of due diligence in talking to the CDC, the main CDC, the federal, each other, buildings, et cetera, but it seems like the one most important group that you left out of the conversation is the parents. And I realize that there are some things you can't waiver on, some things you can. However, these are also medical decisions that are being made for our children in terms of vaccination, in terms of the effects of masking, particularly long term on our kids. And while I understand that you probably will never be able to please everybody in terms of parents, I do feel like we are a vital part of that conversation, and that that's something that we should have been involved in via us. I mean, we've gotten surveys about transportation, we've gotten surveys about the pool testing. I have yet to see a survey from parents asking how we feel personally about our children wearing masks 30 to 40 hours a week. And I do think that's an important part of the conversation, because at the end of the day, there are kids that we should have some sort of at least opinion or say as to how we feel about what's happening, and particularly in terms of their medical situations and their medical conditions and the things that are happening to them. I know that for myself, I wear a mask 40 hours a week for work on a daily basis for the last year. Myself and coworkers have experienced headaches, nausea, lightheadedness, dizziness, and we only wear them 8 hours a day. I know other medical staff workers who wear them 12 and have bigger symptoms. I don't think that that's incredibly conducive to a good learning environment, much less the physical aspect. And I do wish, and I would encourage you to at the very least send out emails to the parents and at least get their feedback. This is a very important conversation that we're having, and we're their parents. We should be very much importantly involved in that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Hi, my name is Brian Cohen from LAP, and I missed the first few minutes, so I didn't get your name. Sorry.
I'm John Caverly.
Oh yeah, I thought so. Okay. First, I just appreciate the presentation, and I appreciate the thought that went into it, and I really liked, how you started talking about your concern about the safety for the students and the teachers and the community. So I applaud you for that. The question I had was on, I think it was slide 5. I don't know if you can go to that slide. The ability to move it. Yes. Okay, so if you could help me understand, if you're vaccinated and considered a close contact with someone with COVID-19, you are not required to quarantine from school, after school, or community activities unless you're symptomatic.
Correct.
So then why are you requiring people to be universally masked indoors if they're vaccinated? Because it seems like one counters the other. And I'm just trying to understand, is the universal masking a scientific reason, or is it to make all students equal so that no one is, singled out if they're not vaccinated? And then I guess my follow-up
Yeah, that is the question, right? That's, you know, that's the work that we've been doing. And that's why we're trying to work with the CDC to better understand what that requirement is. Because the common sense says we don't want to devalue the vaccination, because that's what we've asked people to do. Now, what I have been told by the CDC, by the Maine Department of Education, by our nursing staff, is that, you know, whether you are vaccinated or not, you are still a carrier. And that we don't know the vaccination levels of all of our schools right now. And so is there a vaccination level at our school that would say the CDC would no longer require masking? That's the work that we're trying to do right now, is first determine how many students have been vaccinated, and then is there a threshold that we can say safely that that recommendation would be taken away. So that's the work that we'll be doing over the next couple of weeks.
But that's a recommendation, right? You said requirement. It's currently a recommendation.
That's correct.
Okay, so.
It would be, we would make it a requirement, that's correct. Yep,
You would make it a requirement based on the recommendation.
that's correct.
Okay. So is this the rule right now that you're deciding on?
That's what we're talking about right now, but I also know that in the next couple of weeks, things could change drastically, and that's why we're trying to collect the data. This is our starting point. That's what I'm proposing as a starting point, I should say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can move on to the next item.
Perfect. The next is resignation of staff. Just wanted to share that we've had 4 staff members who have resigned. Richard Jakes is our facilities coordinator, Rhonda Miller as an art teacher at Marshall Great Works School, Kara Bulger as a special education teacher at Central School, and then Ashley Locke as a technology teacher at Marshall Middle School. Also just wanted to share a couple of notes, is that I would ask that the board start to develop a list of potential topics for board meetings. I think as we've kind of talked over the course of the year, some presentations that may make some sense would be, I'm talking a little bit more about Alice, is the school safety training that we've done, probably a couple of presentations around the school counseling work that we're doing, some of the summer programming. Might be good to be able to talk about the summer programming, and then obviously student data. But as you want to build those lists, typically we have 8 to 12-ish topics that we ask, and we incorporate over the course of the year where we have presentations done for the board. So if over the next couple of meetings, if you'd like to start to build that list, that would be appreciated.
Do we present those ideas at the meeting, or should we email you in advance?
Email Joe, and
Okay.
then we'll consolidate a list, and then I'll create a draft for the school year. Just being mindful that, you know, in March, April, and May is typically a lot of the time in those meetings is devoted to the budget as well. So just trying to find the balancing of where we do that. And then the student report. The students are not here today, but I did want to announce that Annabelle Taff will be the new junior class representative to the school board. So I know Annabelle's really excited about being there, and then she and Trevor both plan to be here on the 1st. So,
Very good.
and that concludes my report.
Thank you. That brings us to correspondence. We did get a notification from the Maine School Management Association about the annual fall conference. I believe you all have a copy of that notification in your packet. There is a save-the-date notification. And I believe they're planning on doing this as they did last year virtually. It does say virtual. It's on the 28th and 29th of October. So give some thought to whether you want to attend some or all of that conference, and let me know. I'll let John know, and we'll make sure that they get appropriately registered for that. Okay. That brings us to the reports of the committees. Facilities and Finance met earlier this evening. As soon as I find it, oh, it's right there. I'll give a quick summary of the numbers. Heather, I think you agreed to do the facility and transport and food service update. So as regards the numbers, expenditures are pretty much in line with budget. Revenues are running a bit behind, but that's because a number of factors, one of which is the grant process doesn't commence until September, so we'll see grant money rolling in September. July was one of our three payroll months for this year, so that added to expenditures. The $2 million note that we took out a year ago to cover the floating of the federal money and the tardiness of reimbursements, we have paid that note back in full now, so that is off the books. That was good news. Our cumulative cash flow number is right where we expect it to be, so that's all good news. That's pretty much it on the numbers. The report is a bit thin because we're only talking about July, and things will start getting interesting as we get back into school. Heather, if you wanted to. go
Yep.
ahead.
As you drove in this evening, you probably noticed that the parking lot at the high school has now been paved. The high school track has been repaired. The roof of Elliott Elementary School has been re-shingled, well, at least a portion of the roof. A building permit has been approved for the second floor of the superintendent's office for the renovations that are going to be taking place. We're looking at the facilities rental agreement contracts. The board will be looking at those contracts soon. The food contract with Chartwells is up in June. It's been a 5-year wonderful term with Chartwells, and we'll see what happens next.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. Next, the Education Policy Committee did meet sometime in the past week or so. I don't have that date in front of me.
July
but
29th.
July 29th.
Okay.
Okay. And does anybody on that committee want to give us a report of that quickly?
I will. So we reviewed several policies, actually. I won't go into full detail because we'll talk about them as we go through the new business, but we reviewed policy KE, and that was just a review. BDH, which is public participation in board meetings, there was some law changes, and so the policy changed to reflect those law changes, chose some wording about more specifically who can comment and when at board meetings, and cross-reference the bylaws there. IGA, we reviewed, and we decided to go with the MSMA policy, or their framework, actually. They had some changes that better fit our existing policy. We sort of took the best of both policies and put them into one, and there was a cross-reference IG-R that we're keeping. More IGA cross-references, a couple that we got rid of that we didn't need anymore. IJJ was, we were going to get some more clarity on that one, and I think IJJ-E then as well. And then IMB, the controversial issues, there was lots of discussion around this. And the biggest changes that came from that discussion is that the language will be more student-centered rather than faculty. The language will focus more on students than faculty in that policy. Did I miss anything? Is that it? Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Last committee is the Wellness Committee / Social Emotional Learning Committee. I'm seeing here that the date of that next meeting is
September 1st.
It will be September 1st.
First Wednesday of the month. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll look forward to an update at our next meeting. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. That brings us to new business. We have a raft of policies from several meetings ago that are now up for second readings. Can I have a motion, please, with regard to DJE?
I move to approve a second reading and discussion of policy DJE, bidding requirements.
A second.
Sue, thank you. There have been no changes since the last meeting, I presume? Okay, any comments or questions? All in favor? That's 6-0, thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, with regard to the administrative procedure associated with that policy?
I move we approve the second reading and discussion of policy DJE-R, Federal Procurement Manual for Main School Units Administrative Procedure.
Second.
Heather, thank you. Again, second reading, no changes? Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? All in favor? Also 6-0, thank you. JLCD is next.
I move for consideration and action to approve second reading and discussion for policy JLCD- administration of medication to students.
A second.
Sue, thank you. Again, second reading, no changes. Any comments or questions? Okay, all in favor? That is also 6-0. Thank you very much. And that brings us to E1.
I move we approve the second reading and discussion of policy JLCD-E1, administration of medication to students on field trips. Note, change in policy number.
I'll second. Lisa?
Lisa, thank you very much. Okay, any comments or questions about that? Also a second read, no changes, all in favor? Is also 6-0, thank you very much. And that brings us to E2, associated with that same policy.
I move we approve the second reading and discussion of policy JLCD-E2, administration of medication to students authorization form. Note, change in policy number.
Second.
Thank you, Heather. Also a second read. This change in policy number actually refers to the -E2, right? The
Yeah,
E1,
correct.
E2? Yeah, that's the change, okay. All right, any comments or questions? All in favor? That is also 6-0, thank you. All right, and two more second readings, it looks like. One is JLCDA. Motion, please?
I move to approve a second reading and discussion of policy JLCDA, medical marijuana in schools.
Second. Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa. Also a second read without changes. Yes, any questions, comments? All in favor? 6-0, thank you. And KE. May I have a motion, please?
I move for consideration and action to approve second reading and discussion for policy KE, public concerns and complaints.
A second.
Sue, I think that was you, right?
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay. This is also up for second reading. And there's no changes since our first reading. All in favor? That is 6-0, thank you. Okay, that brings us to the first readings. May I have a motion, please, with regard to ADF?
I move we approve a first reading and discussion of policy ADF, school district commitment to learning results.
Second.
Thank you, Heather. Someone summarize the changes? I think you may have mentioned this in your remarks. Jen?
Let me see. Reviewed, no changes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's a pretty quick summary. Thank you. All right, excellent. Any questions about that? All in favor? That's 6-0, thank you. Okay, BEDH, please, a motion.
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings.
Second.
Heather, thank you. I think this probably warrants a bit of discussion.
Yes, please.
Anybody from the policy committee want to?
John, chime in here. This replaces, does this replace BDH?
Yeah, there was a change in the Maine state law.
Correct.
That our former policy said that if people were going to make comments to the board on items not on the agenda, that they would need to be prior approval for that, and that law has changed. And so this is really getting the proper language with the law, and then be able to be, once we have this piece in place, then we'll look at our procedures and how we manage that at actual board meetings. The big idea is that a board meeting is the business meeting of the board, and that they do want to take public comment, but they don't necessarily would respond to public comment. And so we just want to be able to make sure there's some clear criteria as we go forward.
So we've been talking about implementation of this taking the form of actually carving out a specific public comment period in each board meeting. And I believe that's accounted for in this policy. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments or questions? This is a first reading. We'll be back again in September on the 1st. Okay, all in favor? That is 6-0. Thank you. Next first reading is with regard to -R, which is the procedures.
I move we approve the first reading to rescind and discussion of policy BDH-R, public participation at board meetings procedures.
A second?
That was Lisa. Thank you.
So I think were we removing this because BEDH now replaces?
We had two policies in the past, and then my understanding is that the BDH-R is actually what we're going to consolidate just to the one policy that Drummond and Woodson had.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this motion is to rescind.
Actually, remove that,
Remove
Yeah.
dash R. and-
Yes.
And procedurally will be covered in BEDH.
to rescind it and
To
discuss, yeah.
rescind it,
Yep.
Yep.
okay.
That's clear to everybody? All in favor? Okay, that's 6-0. We'll have a second vote on that in September as well. Can I have a motion, please, with regard to Section B, Board Governance?
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of Section B, Board Governance.
I'll second, Jen.
Thank you. This is the board governance document that governs how we operate as a board. And the changes that were made to it are mostly to reflect the changes in the policies that are up for first read.
That's correct.
Around how we deal with public.
Yeah, they're all related back to this,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Okay.
in making these other changes, we have to also change the board governance document.
Correct.
And that's not here to look at right now.
It's
I mean,
not in the
our
packet.
bylaws, but it's
There was a copy of it in the folder on the.
in the bylaws.
on
Okay.
In the
drive.
bylaws,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
part of the bylaws.
It's in the bylaws,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And it will note that in the bylaws,
Okay.
and then the bylaws may be changed as we review the bylaws over the next couple of weeks as part of our work around the mission
Right.
statement, and so
Yep.
Yes.
that will be another opportunity to look at that policy. And it's not really a change, it's just referring back to that policy that we've looked at it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Any other questions? All in favor? Okay, that is 6-0, thank you. That brings us to IGA.
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy IGA, curriculum development.
Second, Heather?
Thank you, Heather. Okay. Comments about this?
So we reviewed our policy versus the MSMA version. We decided to go with the MSMA version because their framework, we like their framework better. It
A
took-
little cleaner, I think, was
Yeah.
the, yes.
Okay, fair enough.
I'm gonna
I
read
think
my
you may have
chicken
said that
scratch.
in your introduction.
Yep.
Okay, cool, thank you. Any other questions or comments about it? All in favor? 6-0, thank you. And IGA-R.
I move we approve a first reading and discussion of policy IGA-R, curriculum development and adoption, process for change recommendations.
A second.
Sue, thank you.
And that's just a cross-reference, which we're going to keep.
Okay,
Correct.
now with the changes.
No.
No.
Questions or comments? All in favor? That is 6-0, thank you very much. Okay, IMB, teaching about controversial issues.
I move we approve the first reading and discussion of policy IMB, teaching about controversial issues.
Second, Heather?
Thank you, Heather. This probably warrants some additional discussion as well. I think you referenced it in your introduction, but there's some substantial language changes that are focused on students versus.
Yes. So there was a lot of discussion. So were you at this meeting?
Yes.
You were, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, chime in. Lots of talk about changing the language to make it more student-centered. Sort of pulling from all the different versions and sort of making this version that best reflected what we wanted.
I think we had a Drummond and Woodson version, as we kind of had our board workshop with Mike Boucher, gave us some advice, and there's MSMA version. And we really felt like our version and the Drummond and Woodson version was really about the adults.
Yep.
And there was some important information within that, but the MSMA version really, we thought, framed it very eloquently that ultimately instruction in the classroom is about kids.
Yep.
And so you'll notice under number 4, it's the ability for students to study any controversial issues, the ability for students to have free access to relevant information. So we really try to change the dynamic about what teachers can and can't do and about what instruction should do for students. And so really we were able to combine those two things. And this is, part of this is a change in the policy, but there's also kind of there's a philosophical shift here of really trying to, reframe that work around what is best for kids in the classroom. And that's why I think we were able to combine those two policies.
Very good. Comments or questions? And this, like the rest of the, will be back on September 1st for second.
That's correct.
read. All in favor? 6-0. Thank you very much. All right, that's the end of the policy stuff. We have a bunch of nominations to consider. Please have a motion to nominate Angela Petty.
I move we nominate Angela Cuddy, first-year probationary art teacher, Marshwood Great Works School, BA 02, 45,953, school year 2021 to 2022.
I'll second, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
So Angela recently graduated with Bachelor of Arts from the Art Education Studies at the University of New England in Biddeford. She has previously worked as an educational technician, and then this past year she worked as a long-term substitute force at the Marshwood Great Works School. And so with the retirement of our art teacher there, Angela applied for the position, and she will be the person that we're nominating to go forward. So we're excited. Angela did a wonderful job filling in for Rhonda, and so we're happy to have her aboard full-time.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? That's 6-0. Thank you very much. Need a motion to nominate Tara Walsh, please.
I move to nominate Tara Walsh for one-year position, school nurse, Marshwood Middle School, a bachelor's degree, step 4, $47,843, school year 21-22.
Second,
Thank
Lisa.
you, Lisa.
So Tara served as a long-term substitute last year for the entire school year at Marshwood Middle School. She worked closely with Judy Doran, which allowed Judy to be able to do some of the district work that we needed to do, obviously, from a nursing perspective. So Tara, this is a one-year position that will be funded through some of our ESSER monies that we put aside as we try to plan to come back to school this year. Obviously, the nursing expectations are going to be increased again as the management of the different facets of COVID-19 and the required vaccinations across the state. So Tara will be a great hire. She's already been acclimated to the school building.
Great. Questions, comments? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you very much. Into the home stretch. May I have a nomination or a motion, please, to nominate Dana Brown?
I move we nominate Donna Brown, District Board of Certified, oh, God, I can talk. District Board Certified Behavioral Analyst, BCBA, MA 09, 60,025, first year probationary, school year 2021-22.
Second, Lisa.
Lisa, thank you.
Dana is actually coming to us. She's currently working with the community partners out of Dover. She's a certified board certified behavioral analysis. She has a master's of science in applied behavioral analysis. She's had a number of different roles within school districts and also served as a life coach. And she'll be working within our district for students around behavioral ideas and concerns. This is one of the decisions that we made as a cost saving, is that we are contracting services out for this, and so this obviously allows us to be able to save some money budgetarily to bring our own person in, as we talked about earlier. So, Donna Brown.
Questions?
Dana Brown, excuse me.
Questions or comments? No? All in favor? That's 6-0. Thank you very much. Can I have a motion, please, to nominate Bonnie Micho?
I move we nominate Bonnie Micho, choral music teacher at Marshwood High School, BA 11, $58,358, first year probationary, school year 21-22.
I'll second, Jen.
Thank you, Jen.
So Bonnie will be joining us at Marshwood High School. She'll be replacing Tanya West, who obviously was a very important member of our faculty here. Bonnie is so excited about really working to build a music program, to really get kids excited about the choral program in particular. She has a great experience as a student at the University of Maine through their band. Also worked in Richmond and Sebago, which is MS 8061, and is currently a music teacher at SAU 54. Just a great deal of energy. I know that she's already begun meeting with our fine arts teachers across the district and kind of building some plans, so she's really excited about hopping on board and getting some great momentum. So, Bonnie Misha.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? That's 6-0. Thank you very much. May I have a motion, please, to nominate Anna Fogg?
I move to nominate Anna Fogg, school nurse at Central School, bachelor's degree, step 14, $64,043, first year probationary, school year 21-22.
I'll second. Lisa?
Thank you, Lisa.
So Anna's been working as a cooperative school nurse in Stratham, New Hampshire. She has a degree from the University of New Hampshire in Bachelor's of Science. But she also has children that have gone through the district, which is a neat add-on. And in fairness to Anna, her first day was day one of Alice training. So she actually came in and started with a bang, to say the least. But really excited about joining the Central family. So.
Questions, comments? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you very much. And a motion, please, to nominate Mary Macedo.
I move we nominate Mary Macedo, technology teacher at Marshwood Middle School, BA 07, $51,678, first year probationary school year 2021-2022.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir.
Mary's had a great deal of experience in a bunch of different roles. Most recently working in Portland with the second grade looping, and also working with the kindergarten. She's been a literacy interventionist. She's had a number of literacy educational technician roles throughout the area. She's from Ware, Massachusetts originally, and graduated from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, and actually is involved in some graduate coursework. I'm really excited about the opportunity to really be one of those key teachers in the teaching of technology in our district. So in 6th grade is really the first opportunity students have a direct class focused on digital citizenship around the use of technology. And so we have a specialist being able to teach that, which is a critical course for all of our 6th graders. So she's really excited about that opportunity. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you. And our last nomination of the evening for Rebecca Bolstridge.
I move we nominate Rebecca Bolstridge, special education teacher at Central School, BA 04, $47,953, first year probationary school year 21-22.
I second.
Thank you, Heather.
So Rebecca said she is so excited to be able to work at the school that she went to, and she drives by every day on her way to work at MSAD 60. So she has been there for 4 years, had a bunch of different roles, most recently working as a special education teacher. Really excited about joining the Central School team. Really has some great ideas around how to build inclusion into the classroom and be able to differentiate for students, school-wide. So just really excited to have Becky join the group.
That's exciting.
Questions or comments? All in favor? That's 6-0. Thank you. That concludes our new business. We are formalizing our recognition of the building administrators as part of our agenda. Typically, we would split them up by the first or second meeting, but I believe they're all here tonight. Is that true?
That is true, I believe.
Okay. Let's,
Maybe not. Maybe Rob's not here.
okay. Well, whoever among you is here and wishes to update the board on anything, please.
Oh, Rob's not there. There he is.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. I've got a few things to share tonight. First, I want to recognize Jan Sarabona, who is a member of our staff at Elliott Elementary School. And Jan, an amazing contributor to our school. She recently planned and hosted the hometown picnic in celebration of Maine's bicentennial, which was wonderful. It was last Saturday. I came up to visit for a while, met some former teachers. It was really a great experience for a new administrator in Elliott. Real community feeling, so it was great. Jan also, I will add, I told Jan, I joked to her and I said, Jan, I'll sign the facility usage form if you weed the front garden. And I went out and she was at work and the gardens looked great. I would just like to compliment the folks that have worked so hard on getting our building ready for the opening of school, our custodial staff, admin assistants, others who have worked in other areas, interview committee members, and all of those folks that ran our summer school programming for kids. Just terrific work all summer long, and kids made some significant progress as a result of that. And we're going to have a very clean, safe school to open. Our school reopening committee, cheers to them. They have worked diligently in ensuring that our protocol are going to be in place, the kids and staff are going to be safe, and we're going to keep the doors open. So that's good news. And I did have the pleasure of meeting with our PEEPS organization today, which is our PTO, as you know. They had a number of questions. The information that John shared this evening will help to clarify some of the questions that they had around volunteering. Is it okay? Things along that line. The social distancing and other questions that they brought up. But they also talked about some big issues, planning that agenda for the future, like they would like to sink their teeth into some playground renovations, some upgrades, and things like that. And capital improvements, they were referenced at Elliott Elementary School, super job on the paving of the school parking areas and the shingling of the roof. Thank you very much. And just thumbs up to the ALICE training that John organized for us. The team from Elliott Elementary School, we learned a great deal, and we're excited to present to our staff in November. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're just so excited to have everybody back and back in the building. You can feel all of the excitement, getting the kids back, and it was wonderful. Just a big thank you to the summer programming. We had kids all over in the summer, and they just had that balance of fun and learning, and it was great to see. And just echoing what Peter said, like our custodial staff has been amazing. Just 2 weeks ago, I said, well, we're flipping 2 classrooms and watching them just do everything we need to do. So thank you so much, Kevin, Matt, and Sean. They're just wonderful. We thank to the PTO, we're getting picnic tables. We all last year, even in the winter, we ate outside unless it was below 30. So, and they sat on cushions. Then we went outside to have our last breakfast of the summer and realized that kids were eating with lots of ants. So our PTO gave us picnic tables, so we're able to still distance and continue we loved eating outside and continue that. We also have a donation for reusable bags. We didn't get to recycle as much as we wanted last year, so we're excited to be done with the plastic bags, and all the kids will have their own reusable shopping bags, so excited about that. We've been doing lots of hiring, as you can see, at Central in the summer, so sad to see many of our friends leave, but excited for the new energy. We have lots of new staff, we have new educational technicians, so excited to get them oriented and ready. And we've had lots of great training, as the ALICE training, as we had a lot of fun actually together and planning and all that important work. So I'm excited about all the learning we did this summer also. And you know, we did at the end of last year have all our remote students come a couple of times, at least 3 or 4 times, and ready just to get them all back and all be together. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can just say ditto to what Peter and Nina said. We did the same thing with the kiddos that were remote. We had them come back or come over to the school in the spring. So hopefully that will be where they feel a little more comfortable about coming into the school. We've got a couple of open houses coming up again before school starts. So again, getting kids back into school. And speaking of kids in the school this summer, we had a lot of kids. We had the summer boost program, and we had a number of special ed programs. So we had tons of kids, all through the building. And the other day, a couple of the kids I think it was the day before the program ended, and one was a four-week program, one was a 6-week program. So kids were there a lot. And so I asked one of the kiddos, I said, "Are you going to be happy for summer?" He said, "No, Mr. Bell." He said, "I love coming."
And it was really cool to see. And again, a lot of that goes to the staff. The staff made it fun. It wasn't just like work. I mean, kids were outside. Wendy's here. Wendy was outside in the garden. I mean, you never knew what was going to be going on. But again, that is just a tribute to our staff. Speaking of that, with the custodians, we were down a custodian this summer. So we had Morgan and Ed were on their own, basically not on their own, but by themselves most of the summer, and never complaining. And it was just, I mean, you had a third of the person down, and the work is going to be done. I always talk to Ed, I always ask him about August 1st, like, Ed, are you nervous? And he always said, Jerry, it's fine, don't worry. And this year on August 1st, he said, Jerry, I'm nervous. But he said, it will be done. He said, kids will be ready to come to school. So we're excited for the beginning of the school. If you notice that I was looking at my phone, you probably didn't, you weren't watching me during your meeting, looking at the phone. My daughter-in-law is in labor, and so I'm just waiting, we're waiting. So if you all of a sudden hear, yes, you'll know that the little guy has arrived. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, isn't the summer rec program, the Southwark Summer Rec, also housed there? Right. I mean, that's like a whole nother slew.
Again, when you think of the custodians, they're working around all of that. And the food service program, I mean, the kids had breakfast, they had lunch, a lot going on in school.
Okay.
Hi everyone. I felt like I was in labor all summer. So Jerry triggered that a little bit. I apologize. It has been another exciting summer. I think kind of working back with the timeline starting last spring, there was a lot of optimism and enthusiasm for, we relaxed some things and we started planning. The design thinking started last spring. I think we were pretty savvy across the district and at the high school to not get in front of ourselves too much. So we made some decisions last spring to allow us a lot of agility. If we got great news, no problem, the plan would work. And if we got news that we're hearing tonight, the plan would work. And for example, that we're going to maintain our 8-period schedule. And the distancing will go from 6 to 3. And we did that because if, as I said, there was good news and everything was really, really back to normal, we'd have smaller classes. We're going to run like a AB block, so there'll be fewer students in the class with more time to address any of that learning gaps and to really meet the students where they are, because it is important for us. The social emotional learning will be a critical piece, but also we need to kind of get back into the swing of things and challenge our students and move them along. So we have some training this year. We've designed our entire professional development and our Thursday mornings to talk about assessments that can gauge where the students are and sharing curriculum. So it's really been a lot of work around a lot of designing, students coming back full-time, 5 days a week, back to normal, so to speak. And what does that look like at the high school level where our transcript is at the end of it, and we have to make sure we prepared our students. So last spring we made some decisions that I think will allow us agility to really respond and the wraparound professional development to support our teachers in really being there for the students. The summer has been really pretty intense in a good way. Our summer program, we normally have anywhere from 8 to 9 students. We had 60 or 70 students in credit recovery with a new platform that we're really excited about, and we'll continue using that as support. It's called, it's courseware, it's called, and we'll be able to use that as a supplement. We had some adventure-based learning for the social emotional piece, and our staff, our administrative assistant staff, our custodial staff, and the teaching and ed tech staff that came in this summer was really, I can't say enough about them. Based on some of the new information, our meeting last week and this plan, we'll be able to do the final fine tuning to start some communications in the next few days for the high school, what the first few days look like, and, you know, some other important information about the schedule, et cetera. As John alluded to, there's just some fine tuning, and as I said, I think we really set ourselves up well to be agile for whatever news comes down the line. All right.
Thank you. That concludes our agenda. Kate, you're up.
I move to adjourn this meeting.
With regard to, what? Yeah, can we talk with you after the meeting? Well,
Okay.
we've already, I'm not clear what specific item you're. Can you tell me what item on the agenda you're asking? So rather than answer that question, what I'll say is that. It's not inconsistent. I'm gonna have to ask you to stop. That's not inconsistent with our policies. Okay. Okay. So we have a motion on the table to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Heather, thank you. All in favor? That is 6-0. Thank you. We are adjourned.